I couldn't wait to come on and talk about this conversation that Charlamagne the God and Loren LaRosa had on his podcast, Brilliant Idiots. So welcome back. Thank you for joining all of us today. I'm your host, Sis. Check the description box if you happen to have any questions. When you're ready to comment, YouTube will automatically give you the option to view the 3 comment channel guidelines. I think it would be great to take a quick moment and just click the word view. Again, don't worry about searching for it. When you get to comment, it will be up there automatically. You just have to click the word view and I got it and you're good to go. But let's go ahead and jump into this. If you don't know what's going on, that's okay. Just stay with us. I'm going to bring you up to speed, okay? So first, let's start with what all of us know, okay? All of us know that Wendy Williams has been going through it the last many years of her life. Now, I am one of those people. I believe in taking personal responsibility for my actions. I'm not down with the blame game. I was a million years ago, but I had to grow up and I had to realize that, you know what? My life is the way it is because of the choices I've made, okay? And sure, I could say this and that, but that was just the truth of it. And so I began to work, do the internal work, okay? And so Wendy Williams is where she is today because of her consistent bad choices. That's the truth. Even staying with the husband was a decision that she made. When she found out he was cheating on her when she was pregnant. And she chose to stay, where he consequently cheated on her all those years for their entire marriage, she chose to stay. It was a choice that she made. And choices do have consequences, good and sometimes bad consequences. We call the good ones rewards, okay? So we know what's been going on with her. We know that she was trying to get out of that conservatorship, right? TMZ was behind her. She got some of the, she didn't get it, TMZ, Harvey, he got some of those big name lawyers to help her. I said, even those folks are not going to be able to help her because they don't know the whole story. And when someone's trying to get out of a conservatorship, are they going to tell us the full truth, y'all? Of course not. And it doesn't make them bad. It didn't make Wendy and her family bad. It just meant they were desperate and they were only going to tell us the portions that made her look like a victim. Okay? But I knew when Harvey and them get up in there, they're going to find out the whole story and they're going to have to back out of it because she just wasn't telling the truth. And that's exactly what happened. Remember when people were rallying for Britney Spears to get out of her conservatorship? I came online. I said, folks need to leave that alone because she's not going to tell everything. And she's been out of it for years and we've all seen her, right? We've all seen her where now people are like, somebody go help Britney. Other girls on her dancing with knives, okay? Okay. And so Wendy's been going through it. Well, a few days ago on Brilliant Idiots, Charlamagne and Loren revealed that over a year ago, they actually had dinner with Wendy, where Wendy made a startling revelation to them. She said, this is according to them, that she believes everything she's going through is God getting her back for all of the negative gossip and celebrity stuff that she did when she was, into that. Now, we're going to listen to them say it, but I do want to tell you, I highly recommend you listen to their full conversation. It's important for me to note, their podcast episode was not about Wendy. They were talking about a number of different things, which is the format of Brilliant Idiots, okay? This just happened to be something that they said in conversation when they were talking about the most popular podcast. And they mentioned Wendy a few times as they were talking about different things. I will link the podcast episode in the comments, okay? But now let's go ahead and listen to Loren and Charlamagne. I am going to start it a few minutes before they get to that part, just so that you have a little bit more of the context, okay? Go ahead and adjust your volume. Let's go.
They're so, they have so much influence where the rest of the culture will start to do that because a lot of these people collab with one another. Yeah. And that's what they lift all one time. Lift all boats.
What Alex saying is,
and I'm telling you, they need to be the fucking example, and they got to stop this whole
but
shit.
y'all gotta have we need an honest conversation to kick it off first, because I just needed to watch.
What Alex is saying is true. No, what Alex is saying is 100% true. I look at these lists, and that is the thing I see. I'm like, yo, all of these people, they build with each other, they collaborate with each other, they do things with each other. And by the way, it's not like we didn't do that. So we'd be lying if we said on our come up, we all didn't help each other build. Like,
a lot of people would say that's the heyday. when everybody was working together and building.
I'm not sitting there disagreeing with none of that, because I be looking at this shit online, man. All of this back and forth is goofy. Now listen, there's some of y'all I don't give a fuck about building with ever, because I don't have no relationship with y'all. Didn't have a relationship with y'all 15 years ago, and don't really care to have a relationship with y'all now, because the shit that y'all be doing just for clicks and views just ain't for me. I know people want to look at me and be like, yo, Charlamagne was a shock jock. I'm really an asshole when I want to be, okay? So it's not like I was out here just doing shit for clicks and views. And when I did shit for clicks and views, it never felt good. And I've told y'all. I told y'all that Floyd Mayweather shit didn't make me feel good when I played the audio.
So that wasn't just you. That was, I know this gonna go crazy.
No, that was, I say it. If you listen to the audio, I'm saying it. I'm like, oh, fuck that. Like, we got the audio. Let's play it. This shit, I'm saying it. Like, I can't move like that. That shit don't make me feel good. And go back to a conversation that we had with Wendy Williams at dinner about a year and a half ago now. Yeah. What did Wendy say, Lauren?
She feels like everything she's going through right now is God getting her back for all of the things that she said and, about people.
Yes, but
So I have a lot to say on what we just heard them say. And so, boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, I have a lot to say on this. Well, first I want to say that I really wish they would have spent more time on that. Like, for those of you who are not familiar with the Brilliant Idiots podcast format, there are other people there. You just can't see them in studio, but they're at home, and, like Alex is one of those people, and they pan to them and so on and so forth. But I wish one of them would have said, now, why did y'all ask her anything? Did y'all ask her why she felt that way other than what she said? Like, she said why she felt that way, but, ask her more questions. But they didn't. They just kept talking about other things. And Charlamagne kept reiterating that the reason that he pivoted from being a shock jock in his career to being more responsible is that he didn't feel good about the things he was doing, as we heard him say. And he also said he began to change as a man. And he knew he could not sustain that kind of career as long as he was growing as a man. And so he had to pivot. His internal change demanded that he change his career in the way he was handling and putting himself out there in the world. Charlamagne's not perfect. There is no perfect person. People that list off stuff he did even yesterday, he's not perfect. Growth is not the same as perfection. Growth means I started off at point A, now I'm at point C. Anyone who has followed Charlamagne's career, whether they like him or don't like him, they can see that he has changed and he has grown. We have to just take a moment and give people their flowers, because change is hard. How many of you can testify to that? I can. See, a lot of us, like Charlamagne, we've done some internal work. We know that stuff is hard. So as he was talking about that, I wish they would have, like I said, stayed more on like Wendy, but they didn't. And maybe that was purposeful. Maybe they didn't want to go further into the conversation, because this was a huge revelation. Because a lot of people had noticed that Wendy was going to church and, this and that and something else. But we hadn't really heard anyone actually talk about conversations about God or something like that they actually had with Wendy. So it was really nice to hear them say that at least she is cognizant of the fact that her behavior was wrong. Some of the things, not all of it, but some of the things that she said and did those years ago, even, up until she couldn't do her show anymore, they were wrong. So that's good to hear, Now I want to kind of hone in on her statement. Is God paying Wendy Williams back for her celebrity gossip? In my opinion, the answer to that is no. God doesn't pay us back. Here's the thing. There are 3 points I want to make on that, and I can only do 2 depending on how much time I have. First of all, I understand what she means when she said that to them. That's if she said it. We're going by what they said. I understand what she means. God's getting me back for all the things I said and did. Most people, not all, but most people will feel that way. Here it is. When they don't have when their relationship with God hasn't grown to the point where they realize he loves them so much that while they were still sinners, he gave his only begotten Son for them. Until they can get to that understanding in their walk with God, in their relationship with God, it's very true that a lot of people will feel like that, like Wendy feels. They'll say, well, it's getting me back. I smoked and now I have cancer. God's getting me back. Oh, when I was single, I cheated and ran around with other women's husbands. Now I'm married and my husband's running around on me. It's payback. I can't think of it. You know how it goes. Well, you know, I drink and I used to drink all the time, a person will say, and then somebody killed my son in a car accident. It was a drunk driver. Oh my God, my sins are coming back on me. And so again, this is how, as human beings, we rationalize negative consequences, bad things in life. We say, it has to be God getting me back. And so again, I want to start there. I definitely understand what she's saying. What she's saying is wrong, it's inaccurate, but I do understand what she's saying and why she's saying it, okay? Now, again, here is why that's wrong. It's not just that we understand that people who say these things is either because they don't know God, or maybe they haven't grown, as I said, to a point in their relationship with him where they understand God's not getting you back. If he was getting you back, you wouldn't even be here. You know, God don't tap lightly, right? But the reason that that's wrong is what I just said a moment ago. People need to understand the work of the cross of Jesus Christ. They need to understand that while we were in our mess, while Wendy was doing the celebrity gossip, while someone was freaking off with their friend's husband, while we were in our sins, God loved us so much, he sent his Son to die for us. And Jesus said, it is finished. Now, yes, a person has to accept certain things, but I'm not there yet. I'm going to take it one thing at a time. But that's where God is. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever means the gossip blogger, whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but shall have everlasting and eternal life. So no, God's not out to get nobody back. One of the other problems with this is that a lot of people hang their hat on the Old Testament teaching, and they really don't understand not just the work of the cross and what it really means, but the work of grace, the dispensation of grace that we're in right now, where God's not out breaking nobody's neck, Sarah Jakes Roberts. God's not out getting nobody back. God's not out causing someone's kid to get killed in an accident. God's not out to make somebody have a miscarriage because they had an abortion. I've heard a lot of women say that. When I was working with people, if a woman had an abortion, she had several abortions when she was single. Now she's married. Now her and her husband are struggling to have kids. She will reason it out. Oh, it must be because I had all those abortions. Now, there could have been complications to the abortions, but that wouldn't be God getting somebody back. What we're talking about right now is so important because so many people get this wrong. But let's continue. Right now, I'm still talking about and taking it very slow in the commentary about why this way of thinking is wrong. But in the dispensation of grace, there was something that did happen. Okay, and we're taught about this in the Old Testament because, as the scripture says, the Old Testament is our schoolmaster. So we do learn about the character, the nature of God, and things like that. But the God of the Old Testament is not the God of the New Testament. And let me explain what I mean by that, because I know how that sounds. God's nature, his character, never changes. That's what he meant by, I never change. I'm the same. What wasn't okay with God back then ain't okay with God now. However, what did change was God's methods. God's methods and how he handles us as human beings, that did indeed change. Now, I like to point out to people when they're looking at the Bible, don't try to take something that God did, even if it was in the New Testament, that God did for a group of people and apply that to an individual, because that's silly and that's not how it works, okay? That's not how it works. And very often people do that. Well, God may have done such and such for so-and-so because they were affecting a nation. You and I are not affecting a nation. And I like for people to stop the foolishness. They say, oh, yes, I am. No, you're not. You're affecting the kids you're raising. So get on that. Forget the nation. You think, get with the kids that are right in your house that you're neglecting, right? Jonathan Major's mother, we talked about that. While folks were molesting your son, you up here at the church. Talking about God's called you for a nation. No, he's called you to raise those kids right. That's what he called you to do. But I digress. Not really, but anywho. So we have to remember that the way God deals with us changed. But what also changed with this was this. We learn in the Old Testament that God said, you know, I'm going to make a change. And so my laws are now going to be written on your heart. And that is true. You see, there was a shift. Some scholars surmise that's when the activation of the conscience came in. You know, listen, who knows? We won't really know until we get on the other side. And we can talk with God and ask him all of our questions, okay? But there's a lot of scholars that think, you know, that means different things other than just what it sounds like on the surface or what it appears to be on the surface. But that there was some sort of a shift in the way human beings were. But at any rate, what we do know is that the laws, God's laws, what he thinks is right and wrong is written on our hearts now. So see, we don't need nobody to tell us the way they needed in the Old Testament. We don't need nobody to tell. We know. And I've often referred to this. There are research studies out there. These studies have been done for I don't know how long, that show that when children were very little, like they were babies, they couldn't even talk. They didn't understand language. Nobody had taught them the difference between right and wrong. The people working with them in the research studies, they would give them certain tests, so to speak. And they could tell the child knew right from wrong. Well, how is that even possible, y'all, when no one had taught the kid, when the child didn't even understand language? You know why? Because it's written on our hearts. It's written on our hearts. All of us come into this world, we come out of our mom's body with a fully functioning conscience. We know right from wrong. We know. So because God wrote his laws on our hearts now, and we're in the dispensation of grace, there was something else, the free will. We still have a free will as human beings. We see that operating in the Old and New. God said to the children of Israel, I give you basically a choice, life and death. Now you choose. I'm not going to choose for you, but I love you so much. I'm going to tell you all the stuff that's going to happen if you choose the right thing and all the things, or if you choose life, and then all the things are going to happen if you choose death. So we can never forget that we have a free will. Well, a lot of scholars believe that, and I'm not a scholar, but I do believe this, that when God shifted the laws to being written on our hearts, so instead of written on tablets in our hearts, that there was another shift that happened too, in the sense that there's just a whole lot more to choice than I think we understand as human beings. And so what people call God getting them back very often is just simply the results of their own choices. Because choices accumulate, just like you can accumulate money. You can accumulate too many saucers and spoons. Maybe back in the day you used to collect stamps. You can accumulate too many stamps. Choices, good and bad choices, they accumulate just like that. And so very often, because people may be doing wrong things, and we don't see the result, or we don't see our consequences immediately, or even, years from now, we will think, well, we kind of got away with it, or even though that was, but very often, not all the time, but very often, we will see the results of our choices, in particular when it has to do with us. Like, I'm making a choice to eat this chocolate cake and eat another lemon pie and then eat another, tiramisu. And so when I go to the doctor and I find out, I have a health issue like diabetes or something like that, should I say God's getting me back? Or should I take ownership and say, oh, it was all the cakes and stuff that I ate over that long period of time? And that's now where I want to go when it comes to that statement that Wendy made, again, that tons of people have made. I know some of us have made those statements, that God must be getting me back. That's also a way to not take accountability for what we've done. Now, see, on the surface, it kind of sounds like that person is taking accountability, but that's not true. Acknowledging that what we did is wrong is one thing. Taking accountability for it is something totally different. So now let's go through some of the things with Wendy that we've talked about over the years, where I'm going to show you she is exactly where she is, and it has nothing to do with God, but it has every and all to do with Wendy, her choices that accumulated over a long period of time. And sure, it's not nice, it doesn't sound nice, but it's just the truth. Well, let's start with her health problems, okay? Her aphasia and her dementia. And I know people say she don't have dementia. Well, you got to go look at the latest stuff. They said the lady does have dementia, okay? And we talked about it. Yeah, she has it, And so we learned from her son in the documentary, her son Kevin Jr., that the doctors had actually warned her that if she didn't stop drinking, she was going to the problems, the hole that she had in her brain. If any of you guys remember when Kevin Hunter did his interview with Tasha K on her YouTube channel, Unwind with Tasha K, this had to be at least, 5 or 6 years ago. He mentioned the hole in her brain then from the drinking. And see, this is when she was still on the air and she was still very much Wendy. So see, she had a problem. She was warned by the doctor, stop drinking or else. And she kept drinking. To the point where, according to her son, the doctor said she has alcohol-induced aphasia or dementia, whichever one it was, that the alcohol that was caused by the consistent drinking. Because here's what we all forget. Johnny may could drink 15 beers every day after work and it not affect him, or at least it not affect him in a certain way. And so then we assume, well, I can get home from work and I can drink 15 beers. We are really different. In the sense that our bodies respond to abuse different ways. So see, then the next person could try to do what Johnny does, go home and drink 15 beers and comatose almost, right? And then they say, well, look at Johnny. I know I had that. I was like upset. This was a period of my life when I was trying to work on a health issue. I used to love coffee. I used to love it. Then it started causing me problems. And I just could not figure out what the issue was. And I'll tell you something. I looked at my friends who could drink coffee, and I used to get so upset. And I used to even say, I don't understand why I can't do. See, I wanted that coffee. But see, I was different. For whatever reason, it just didn't work for me. Now, I later learned the reason. But still, though, I had to accept I cannot have the coffee like they all have it. So when we go to Starbucks now as friends, if we happen to go there or wherever the mom and pop place, guess what? I have to get a tea. Now, every now and again, I have to be honest up on here. Every now and again, I'll slip in some coffee, but guess what? I suffer for it. I suffer for it. And I say to myself, I just wanted that taste. Well, now I'm suffering for it. Do you get what I'm saying? So we all make choices. And we have to take ownership of those of the results of those choices. And it's easy to blame God. See, that's what that statement also is. It's not just a lack of growth or maybe not knowing God, a lack of understanding of Jesus' work on the cross, a lack of understanding of God so loved the world, a lack of understanding that God's forgiveness is present right now, right? It's also a lack of accountability. It's easy to blame God instead of saying, I'm where I am because of the choices that I made. I remember one time I said on a podcast episode, I was giving a quote that I read somewhere. This quote said, where you are a year from now is a direct result of the choices you're making right now. And one of my listeners got so angry. And I was like, I'm not even sure what's to be angry. I mean, it's the truth, right? But see, people don't like the truth, right? So that's why Wendy is having the health problems. And, I don't know how Wendy raised her son. I don't know how Wendy and Kevin rather raised their son. But what we do know is evidently, he was quite spoiled in the sense that when she wasn't in a conservatorship, he took her money and wasn't the Uber bill, not the Uber bill, the Uber Eats bill or the food delivery bill was over $100,000. I said to you guys, what was he eating? Gold bars? And he was having parties with his friends, so he was taking advantage of his mom financially. Now, there are a lot of kids out there that take money from their parents and things like that, but this is not something we hear about all the time, that a celebrity kid's, and maybe it happens and we just don't hear about it. But what I'm saying is, why was her son so irresponsible that he would take his mom's, money and do all of that stuff? And I remember I told you guys about a Instagram live that Kevin did. I watched it. It was an hour long. I still remember it was in the month of April, but it was a few years back. And he was taking up for his son. This is before we even knew what his son had done. And I said to you guys, that told me when he kept, talking about his son is a good kid, he's a good kid. I said, his son must have done something, y'all, because you don't just, why are you, to our knowledge, yeah, he's a good kid. And so what's the point of keep saying that? Well, he knew what we didn't know yet. And we later learned it was her son that took all the money and did what he did. And we've heard Wendy say that too, that it was her son that really kind of, sparked the bank wondering, wait a minute, somebody's doing something with your money they shouldn't be doing. And we also have to understand that Wendy didn't have certain things in place financially, right? And so it was easy for the bank to come in then and take over and, all those things. And so I could go on and on and on, but I'm not here to run Wendy down. I'm just simply pointing out that very often people blame God for something that really is the result of their own personal choices. But see, if I have to take ownership, and then that means I may have to feel guilty. I may have to feel bad. All the negative emotions that people hate to feel, that's what's going to happen, and that's what they're going to experience if they take accountability. But see, if they just blame it on God and say, God's getting me back, it's this, God out there, and it's Him. You see, it's Him getting me back. Not I was wrong, and I can look back and see exactly the things I did that got me to this place. Very often I used to go back and forth in the comments with women who tried to blame her husband, her ex-husband, for everything. And I am just not down for blaming men for a woman's bad decision to stay with a man that ain't no good. If a woman knows Johnny ain't no good, meaning she knows it, she's experienced, he lies, he cheats, and then she chooses to stay with him, I can't blame that on Johnny. I have to look at the woman and say, this is your fault now. Him being a bad person is his fault. You staying with the bad person is your fault. See, and again, a lot of women don't like to hear that. And I said to you guys then, a man could never say some of the stuff I say to some of the women, because then, well, men, but as a woman, see, I know. I've had circumstances in my lifetime where, it was just easy to sit around and blame a man for something. But when I grew up, when I became a woman, when I grew up and became a fully grown woman with her big girl drawers on, I have to say, you know what, that wasn't Johnny, that was me. I saw it, I knew it, but I loved him. I loved him more than I loved myself, and so I was willing to take it. I was willing to stay there. You see, that's the kind of talk you got to have with yourself. But if you're going to sit around, not you in particular, but the proverbial you, and blame men, or, look at Wendy and say, Kevin, he drove her crazy. Let me tell you something. Ain't nobody in this world we ought to love more so much that they can drive us crazy, y'all. I wouldn't even let my kid drive me crazy. Ain't nobody so important in this world to drive another human being crazy. All that means is that person had a lack of self-love, self-respect, and self-esteem in the first place. And really, when you think about it, who wants a man that can't keep his dick in his pants? That's the kind of man I'm going to let drive me crazy? I don't think so. So, again, every single thing that's happening to Wendy that we are aware of publicly, now, of course, there are things going on with her that we're not aware of. They are a direct result, every single one of them, of her personal choices over a long period of time. And what happened was they just simply caught up to her. Now, here's something. When bad things start happening to us because of our choices, we can ask God to forgive us. We can repent. God, I recognize what I've done is wrong, and I'm so sorry. And very often people think that means that the consequences are going to be kind of washed away. And for reasons we don't quite understand, sometimes that does happen. But very often it doesn't. For instance, if I decided to take my purse and go down to Ralph's and steal the pork and beans, because I love me some pork and beans, if I decide to steal them, I could ask God to forgive me, but they still may send me to jail, and I still may have to spend, time in jail, or, I don't know if I can't bail out or bond out or whatever, right? I mean, you get what I'm saying? So as I get ready to let you go, I was sad to hear this, because I'm sure Wendy may be depressed. Let me take that back. I'm not sure she's depressed, but that statement kind of sounds like someone who may be depressed, and they may be, kind of regretting the things. Listen, Wendy was where she was at the time, and she did a lot of what she did for money. And there are some things she did, like y'all know, I'll never forget her revealing that rapper's, I can't remember his name right now, but his wife's cancer diagnosis. Listen, just because people send you the medical records don't mean you got to read them. But she did all those things, for money, what we would say now for clicks and views. And it made her very, very popular, but it also made her very, very hated. And I think more than anything, because Wendy's at a point in her life where her health is slowly declining, that, she may be, more open to spiritual things, and more open to, wishing things were different. But at the end of the day, God loves Wendy, and his forgiveness was present for her back then. And God's not out to get nobody back. And I really hate that a lot of us kind of feel that way. But, it really is an erroneous teaching that's been around for, I don't know, however many, this nation is just 250 years old, so we can say at least 250 years. But we can go back to Bible days, that very often people seem to think that if something bad is happening to them, that means God is getting them back. When if they just could open up their mind, they could see, oh, I caused this. Now, I will say, there are times when it seems like things happen to us and they're bad, and we can't say that it's a result of my choices or your choices or Wendy's choices. But I'm going to tell you something, and this is what I know from working with people for almost 18 years. That is actually very rare. Because there's a scripture in the Bible that says the curse causeless won't come, meaning everything has a cause. Cause and effect is one of the spiritual laws, right? And so, yes, there are times when it seems like, oh my gosh, this happened, like the mudslides. Well, yeah, but that's not God getting nobody back, right? The mudslides happened, and it destroyed several homes. The wildfires happened, it destroyed homes. And so, yeah, those are things. But we can even talk about climate change, and how the long-term dismantling of certain things have caused the crisis, our climate crisis. So I just want to make that point clear, that it's very rare that something terrible will happen. I'm speaking about to us, directly to us, involved with us, that like we can't trace it to something. It's extremely rare. It's kind of like some of these precious gemstones. They're so rare that you may see one once in a lifetime, or the albino rhino or whatever, whatever these animals, sometimes they say, oh my gosh, it's been 50 years and nobody's ever seen one, and then there was one today. Like, it's kind of like that. It's so rare that people just need to be honest with themselves, and people need to be willing, all of us need to be willing to say, okay, can I be honest and say that this really, I didn't do anything. I didn't, over time that could have connected to this. Like, this is not a result of me drinking, or like Wendy, staying with a man who you knew didn't love you. He was only using you for your money. Yes, you were publicly embarrassed. And then you start fighting with him. We heard her tell it. You got drunk that night and y'all fought and you fell and you broke your arm. What if you had left him years and years ago? None of that stuff. The domino effect of that stuff would have never happened. She would have still even had her show. And so as I get ready to let you go, that's the conversation. Charlamagne and Loren LaRosa saying Wendy told them at dinner she feels like everything she's going through is God getting her back. What are your thoughts on that? Let us all know in the comments, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye, guys.